And on Rabbi Yochanan, he says, "Ben kol achas ve'achas," and between each of the mountains mentioned in our Mishnah, shemaina parsais. There's 8 parsais. Kama havluhu. So altogether, how many parsais are there from Har Mishcha, from Har Zesim, all the way till Beis Baltin? That's Tlasin v'Tartin, 32 parsais. As the Gemara, V'ha idna tuva havu, we know that there's way more than 32 parsais from Har Zesim all the way till Beis Baltin. So on Rabbi, he answers, no, it's not a problem. It's that Tumi istatim l'hu darki, that the roads have been blocked, so therefore it's a much longer journey. You're right. If you took a drone and flew it from Har Zesim directly to Beis Baltin, it would be 32 parsais. But since the roads are blocked and the route is circuitous, it's much more than 32 parsais. How do we know that the direct roads were blocked? It says in the pasuk, "Lachein, therefore, hineni sachas darkech basirim," I'm going to place thorns all along your path. And Rav Nachman Yitzchak, he says, "Mehacha," we learn from a different pasuk. It says, "Nesivoisai iva," he twisted my paths. And more about the procedure of Kiddush HaChaydash. The Mishnah says, "Chasar Gedai L'Haiseb Yerushalayim." There was a large courtyard in Yerushalayim, Beis Yazek Haisa Nikras, and it was called Beis Yazek. Ulasham Kol Edim Miskansim, and over there, all the Edim that left their Tchum on Shabbos in order to be able to give Edus about Kiddush HaChaydash, they would be gathered into this courtyard. Ubezin Baitinai Samsham, and Bezin would interrogate them. They would ask them all their questions over there in that courtyard. Usudas Gedas Aisim Lahem, and they would make huge sudas, huge feasts for them, Bishvil Shirigim Lavai, so they should be accustomed to coming because they know there's going to be a lot of good food over there. Now, Barishayna originally, they weren't allowed to leave that courtyard the entire day, meaning the entire Shabbos. Why is that? We know that if a person leaves their Tchum on Shabbos, they're not allowed to move more than 4 amos from where they are. These Eidim, even though they were allowed to leave their Tchum in order to testify, they still were confined to the courtyard for the remainder of Shabbos. But then Hiskin Rabbi Gamliel Hazakin, he established Shayum Halchin Alpaim Amal Charuach, that they're allowed to go 2,000 amos in all directions, meaning they're just considered like residents of Yerushalayim and they have a regular Tchum Shabbos. And it's not only these that are given this heter, even a chachama, a midwife that left her city, went to a different city to help a woman give birth on Shabbos. If someone came to save people from a fire, or from invaders, or from a flooding river, or from a collapsed building, and they left their tchum and they went to a different city to do this service, they're like the people of that city that they went to, and they have 2,000 amos in all directions. And now the Gemara asks about the real name of this courtyard. Beis Yazek Tanan, is it called Beis Yazek with an ayin, or Beis Yazek Tanan, or is it without an ayin? Beis Yazek Tanan, if it was with an ayin, Lishna Ma'al Yehu, so that has very positive connotations. It says in the pasuk, and he ringed it with a fence, and he removed the stones from it, and therefore this courtyard has a positive connotation to it that's surrounded with a fence, and therefore protects the people that are inside. Beis Yazek Tanan, perhaps it's Beis Yazek without an ayin, Lishna Tzarahu, it has a negative connotation, it's a lashon of discomfort. It says in the pasuk, V'hu Asr Ba'azikim, and he's bound in chains, and the reason why it would have this negative connotation is because they were stuck there the whole Shabbos. Rabbi, he says, Tashma, we had said in our Mishnah, that they would make these huge feasts there, so it must be that it has a positive connotation, because who doesn't want to go to a place that has really good food? The Gemara says that's not a raya, because perhaps it had both of those feelings. It has a very positive connotation because there was a lot of good food and a lot of big sudas. However, it also had this negative connotation because they were stuck there for the whole Shabbos until Rabbi Gamliel Hazakin came along. And more about Kiddush HaChaydash. How exactly would they interrogate the Eidim? What would they do? What was the procedure? So Zok Shabar Rishon Beit Kinai Rishon, the first pair of Eidim that came, so they got checked, they got asked the questions first come, first serve. They would take the older of the two Eidim. Again, we have to separate these Eidim, we can't ask them questions together, and they would ask him the following. Tell us, how did you see the moon? How did the new moon look? How high was it on the horizon? And to which direction was it leaning? How wide was it? So if he says it was Lifnei Achama, so he didn't say anything because that's not possible. And we're going to understand all this in the Gemara. And after they interrogate him, they would bring in the second aid, and they would ask him the questions. And but it turns out they said the same thing. Everything matches up. So Edus and Kayamas, we can keep their Eidos, and we don't need any other Eidim. So what do we do with the other Eidim? Ushar Kal Zugas, all the other pairs that came, we asked them some very basic questions, not because we actually need their Eidos, that's that they shouldn't leave all disappointed that they didn't get to give Eidos, because we want them to come back. And if we just send them away without anything, so then they're not going to come back next time. At least if we ask them basic questions, they're going to feel good that they gave some sort of Eidos, and then they'll come back next time. And now before we begin this Gemara, once again, a full appreciation and understanding of these sugyas can only really be had with accompaniment of pictures and graphs and the like. Alldaf.org has a wealth of helpful and descriptive information, so you should really check it out over there. However, very briefly, to try to understand as much as we can. In the northern hemisphere, when the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, with the moon trailing behind, the sun actually travels at an angle tilting south. Let's take it as a given that it rises at the midpoint on the horizon and then begins its tilted arc. The closer to midday it gets, the more south it goes, and as it nears the evening, it starts moving more north. For example, try this. Take off your yarmulke. Now Now, if it's a standard black velvet one, you're going to see a few stitching lines on it. Pick one facing you, situating it in the middle of your kippah with the line facing away from you. The left side of your kippah is south, the right is north. Now, imagine that from the base of that line, where it meets the rim of your kippah, the line actually curves a little bit to the left, and then halfway across, curves back towards the right, meeting up with the rim on the other side. That's the arc of the sun as it travels south until midday, and then back north until sunset. So now with that basic picture in mind, the Gemara asks, these questions that we ask him, was it in front of the sun? Was it to the north of the sun? Was it behind the sun? Was it to the south of the sun? That's the same exact question. These are the same things. Why are we asking the same question twice? So Rabbi, he answers no. We're asking him, was the indentation of the moon, meaning the inner part of the crescent of the moon, was that facing towards the sun or was that facing away from the sun? Meaning, was the full part of the moon, was the back of the moon facing the sun? And if he says that the crescent, the inner part of the moon, was facing the sun, he didn't say anything because that's not possible. He says, what's trying the pasuk? Dominion and fear are with him. If he makes peace in his heights, the sun never was able to see the indentation, the inner part of the crescent of the moon, or the inner part of a rainbow. The reason why it's never seen the inner part of the moon is the chal shadaita. That's because the moon itself is going to have chalisha sadas. It's going to be disheartened. Since the moon receives its light from the sun, if the sun can see the inside of the moon, that means it can see the part not lit by the sun, and the moon is going to be embarrassed, as this is a reminder that it doesn't have its own source of light. And the reason why the sun can never see the inner part of a rainbow is so that the people that worship the sun can't say that it's shooting arrows at the people that don't worship the sun. Remember, the inner part of the rainbow is always facing the earth. However, if it was the other way around, then the people that worship the sun could always say, it looks like the sun is shooting arrows at the people in the earth that are not worshiping the sun. Why does it look like it's shooting arrows? Because the person holding a bow always has the inner part of the bow facing themselves, and we don't want them to be able to have that ability to say that, and therefore the inner part of the rainbow is never facing the sun. We're going to stop here for the day, pick up continuing to explain this Mishnah tomorrow. For now, everyone should have a wonderful day.